Awesome. Looks like we are live. Okay, take a sip of water here. Be sure to log in. Well, I guess you have to log in if you're here. And once you log in, be sure to say hello. Let me know where you're logging in from and what has been the best smell that you've smelt today. Say hello, where you're logging in from, and what has been the best thing you've smelt, or what has been the best smell you've smelt today. Change it up a little bit. We don't talk about smell nearly enough. Interestingly enough, too, we often remember faster from smell than we do from visual. It's something like 0.01 of a second faster, or I can't remember what the exact number is, but interesting little tidbit. Who knew? A couple quick updates, and I had them written down, but now they've blanking on me. Sunrise Sunset Day is next Wednesday. It's going to be an all-day event, September 12th. This is an opportunity to take a photo of a sunrise and or sunset in honor of a loved one who has passed away. And if you would like to do some sort of act of kindness or donate to a charity in their name, charity that would be meaningful to you and to them as well. Let's see. I had another one too. Shit. Completely blew my mind. I was even telling myself, do not forget to give this update when you go do the Facebook Live today. Oh well, I'm going to start in with the message, and then if it comes to me, we'll circle back around to it. I see Jackie, Earl, Carrie, Lois, Robin, Fern, Mari, Larry, Lisa, Peter on here, and Larry from Santa Barbara. Larry, good to see you on here, man. I love that you're showing up for these. Quick message today, and I want to make sure to be respectful of your time, and I also have an appointment that starts in 13 minutes, so I got to make sure I wrap this up and not go on too long. With that being said, this message today is a really important and powerful one. So what I'd encourage you all to do is if it resonates with you and you want to discuss it a little further, send me a message after this. Send me a message about your takeaways. Let me know what you come up with. Also, this might be one that it might bring a couple things to your attention, and it might be worth you really diving in deeper and exploring in a coaching program with me. So if it does, be sure to reach out to me afterwards. The reason this came up because I was working with a client earlier today, and we were talking about our inner and outer dialogue. And sometimes what we say to ourselves is much different than the what we say outwards to the world. And then it creates this internal conflict, right? Where we're trying to project one image, but inside we're saying something completely different. I'll give you some personal examples, right? Because we all have an inner dialogue. And what that inner dialogue, what we tell ourselves is really, it's everything in how we're going to experience the external world. Somebody could come up to me and tell me I'm a jerk, and it doesn't make a damn bit of difference if they say it. They can believe what they want to believe, but it only matters to me if I decide to believe that, right? Because I have lots of choices available. If somebody tells me I'm a jerk, I could think that, maybe they're kind of a jerk for making that assumption about me, or maybe they're having a horrible day and they just feel that they feel emotionally out of control and they're compelled to lash out for whatever reason, right? Or maybe they're just trying to get some attention. Maybe they've had something horrible happen and they don't know how to cope with what's going on in their life. See, I have lots of choices I could choose, so it doesn't affect me. What does affect me, though, is what I say to myself. That person says I'm a jerk, and I say, oh, wow, maybe I really am a jerk. Yeah, I kind of forgot to say happy birthday to so-and-so, and I didn't do this, and that definitely qualifies me as a jerk. So let me go now deeper into this. I just want to give some context first. And this is where I was sharing this story with my client when we were working through inner dialogues and inner narratives. And I shared with them a personal story. And I was telling them that in my life, there's been 3 distinct dialogues I've had when I've looked in the mirror, and I've had with the person looking back at me. And, you can all comment in if you can relate to any of this at all. When I was younger, I was probably the most shy, most insecure person you'd ever meet in your life. No joke. I mean, it was so unbelievably bad that I can remember before my freshman year in high school started, I had such bad like physical anxiety that I was actually causing my body to break out in hives because I was so fearful that I was going to get there and people were going to make fun of me. They were going to see me for just basically the low life piece of shit I saw myself as, that they're going to throw me in the trash can. They were going to make fun of me, that I was going to be, crucified in public and all these types of things. My daily conversation with myself when so you can imagine, right, what's going on. It's not that there was anything externally that had happened that would lead me to feel that way. It was internally the conversation I was having with myself. So my inner dialogue from, really throughout most of high school, maybe in parts of elementary school, but really in high school, for most of my freshman, sophomore, and junior year, my inner dialogue started something like this. I would stand in front of the mirror and I would spend upwards 20 to 30 minutes every day picking my nose, because I was so afraid that if I had a booger that was visible, people would see me even more clearly for the ugly, horrible person I was. And so all the while I was in there, like picking, making sure there was every single speck of anything was clear, I was telling myself what a loser I was, how horrible of a person I was, what a waste of space I was, how I was God's punishment to my parents, how I was just the worst person, that I'd never get a girlfriend, that nobody would ever love me, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. This dialogue was largely formed from how I felt about the guilt I felt about my parents. I felt like their pain in their relationship was because of me. It was because they weren't happy because I was there and they had to spend money on taking care of me. And because of that, they struggled financially. And because they struggled financially, they weren't happy. So a lot of that developed because of my external assessment of stuff. And then my inner dialogue I told myself about that reinforces it, right? When I graduate high school and I go to college, I literally am so insecure with myself and self-conscious that I can remember, and some of you may have heard this story before, but I can remember sitting in my Psych 1 class, and this girl turns around, or she taps me on the shoulder rather, and I turn around, and she asked me a question about the homework, completely innocent question. I go from skin tone to damn near purple because I am so self-conscious that this person's even engaging with me and talking with me. My heart's racing. I start sweating profusely. I stammer out some sort of reply, and that girl never sat next to me again. I wonder why. I carried on that same dialogue that I had in high school with myself in the early part of college. Just self-berating, negative, piece of shit, worthless, all those types of things. And it got to such a point that I started to drink a lot of extra alcohol. I started to, because if I drink a lot of alcohol, it's the only way I could really feel uninhibited enough that I could relax, I could smile, I wouldn't feel so self-conscious. I felt a little bit more like I could be more visible, all these types of things. And this culminated with two things happened. So with my negative self-talk, two things happened. Number one, I got put on an academic disqualification from school, which is a 1.13 GPA. And when you get that kind of GPA, they send you this letter that basically says, shape up or we're going to ship you out. And then right after that, I got put on probation from the dorms because one night I got so drunk in the dorms that I spent most of the night passed out over the toilet, throwing up in it. And keep in mind, this was a public bathroom. And I'm buried in like this, hands on the seat, face in there, hours throwing up. My friends thought they were going to have to pump my stomach, all these types of things. And I can remember that next morning waking up and looking at the fallout of that and feeling so ashamed of myself and just so disgusted. And it was in this moment that I had this really awareness that everything I felt and everything I'd been telling myself had come true. Because here I was really on my way to being kicked out of school. And in that time, that seemed like it was such a horrible thing that I was on my way to being just a loser and a rejection, all these types of things. So the next real powerful conversation I had with myself is I remember standing in front of the mirror, maybe a few weeks later, after all this happened in college. I was 18. I may have just turned 19. I was brushing my teeth and I could see these dark circles forming under my eyes. And I'd started to get this beer belly. I was a pretty skinny kid at that point. And I was looking at myself and just had this voice, that same chatter was going all the time about being a loser, being worthless, being all these types of things. But for whatever reason that day, there was another voice that kind of slapped me and said, Jesse, you have such potential. You have such potential to do so much great things in this life. You've worked so hard to give yourself a chance at a different life, a better life, and you're about ready to throw it all away. Why? Because you're too scared, you're too insecure, you're too shy, you don't value yourself enough, you think you're worthless and undeserving. Do something about it. For whatever reason, I felt compelled to listen to that voice, and I won't get into all the details now because we're short on time. I started to make some changes. I started to make changes and changed and began working on myself to the point where, fast forward a couple of years later, I was having a much different dialogue with myself. It was a dialogue more of hopeful and possibility and potential. And I'd look in the mirror and see the person there and say, you got a shot at this, kid. You can do something. You can do something really important. You can do something really extraordinary. I still have conversations with myself in the mirror on a regular basis. And sometimes they are the not most positive. I can get pretty rough with myself. But here's what's different now. Whenever I start a conversation with myself in the mirror, and even if I'm pissed off and angry at myself because I haven't done something, haven't accomplished something that I want to do, I have to start it off with giving myself a compliment. I have to follow that up with acknowledging some of the great stuff I have done lately. And then if there's something I want to get down on myself on or really, hammer home, I'll let myself do that. I'll allow it because I think it's important to acknowledge. I don't want it to fester. I don't want to depress it. I want to express it so it's out of me. Then when I do that, I must again follow myself up with some sort of positive affirmation. I really appreciate how well you've done lately. I really appreciate you getting up so early. I really appreciate your commitment to reading. I really appreciate how much effort you've been putting with your clients. I'll celebrate something. God, that was such an awesome session you had with your client yesterday. Wow, isn't it so cool that this person's made this shift? And then I end it with something like, I love you and I'm proud of you. Now, what's really important with this is to make eye contact when you do it, because otherwise we're just kind of looking around, oh yeah, I love you, I'm proud of you. And it seems silly. But here's the thing. All of us are talking to ourselves all day, every single day, aren't we? Right? Who on here really has not spoken to themselves at some point today? All of us have. And what I'm suggesting here is this. If we're going to be communicating with ourselves all day, every day, why not make the effort to be deliberate about that communication? The voices that run amok, especially if you have some voices that are pulling you down, they're only doing that for two reasons. Number one, you've been conditioned to do that. It's become a habit. And number two, because there's something deeper there that you need to look at. And it keeps coming up because it's not trying to hurt you. It's because it's trying to gently tap you on the shoulder and say, hey, Sally, you need to look at this. Jim, you need to look at this. It's the only two reasons why. Look at that, explore it. And then when you're having the conversations with yourself, instead of just allowing it to be popping up random, make some time each and every day to have a deliberate conversation with yourself where you have to look yourself in the eye. Because it's the same thing as it is in life, right? It's much easier for us to tell somebody what we think of them when we're not looking at them, or to talk about somebody else behind their back when they're not right there. But when we actually have them in front and we have to look them in the eye, it's a much different experience, isn't it? And the more meaningful stuff is made much more meaningful when we have the opportunity to look into somebody's eyes and make that connection. You are the person you are going to spend the most time with. Your body, your physical body, your inner world is your greatest gift and your greatest asset you have. If you build that up and you nurture it and you make it into the most celebrated botanical garden, the most beautiful experience inside, your outer world will reflect that. So take some time today to look yourself in the eye, have an honest conversation with yourself. And when I say honest, acknowledge the amazingness that you are. And even if you don't feel that amazing, acknowledge one amazing thing about yourself, because each and every one of us have done something amazing. And then look yourself in the eye and say, I love you. I promise you, if you do this, it will transform how you feel about today, how you feel about the moment. And if you continue to do it, you will find that these random conversations that pop up, they'll start to be replaced by a more strong, persistent, and consistent narrative. And that's the narrative that you determine when you look directly in the eyes of the person who you see in the mirror. My narrative in here isn't so all over the place anymore. It's very consistent. I still have my moments, but it's consistent because each and every day I have this conversation with the person mirror. and we decide on what we want to go on in here versus letting it be to chance. I hope this message has been helpful to you all. I have to jump out. I have an appointment that starts here in 30 seconds. If this has been helpful, be sure to leave a comment. If you have questions about it, you can put them in the comments. You can message me. If this has resonated with you at all, if it's connected here and you want to dive deeper into this, send me a message and let's talk about how we can explore this deeper in a coaching program. You'd be amazed at how much this comes up with some of the clients I work with, and it's one of the most powerful processes we work through. I still can't remember what my other update was, so I will try to remember that, and I will be back here tomorrow around the same time. Until then, sending lots of love to you all. Thank you so much for being here, spending a little bit of your time. I really appreciate it. Wherever you are, morning, noon, and night, I wish you an extraordinary rest of your day, and carpe diem, seize this moment and live it to the best of your ability. We'll see you next time, everybody. Bye-bye. Hey, Virginia and Dina, thanks for joining in here on YouTube. I appreciate you both being here.